The galactic arena on Cavor Prime was brighter than any place Lena Voss had ever seen. Huge metal walls rose so high they disappeared into the lights above. The sound of 100 species filled the air, all waiting for the next fight. Drums, horns, and mechanical roars mixed into one restless hum. Every seat was filled with beings from different worlds, all curious about one thing: the small human girl standing in the middle of the arena. Lena wore a simple gray suit, patched in a few places. She had no armor, no weapons, nothing that looked dangerous. Around her stood creatures much larger than her, some covered in scales, some with shells, and some made of glittering metal. They looked at her with open laughter and disbelief. One of them, a huge reptilian Bruthak warrior, leaned down and grinned with sharp teeth. "The Deathworlder. This tiny thing?" he said, his voice echoing through the air. The crowd burst out laughing. Lena didn't answer. She just looked up, calm and still. Her gray eyes didn't blink. Her breathing was slow. She didn't care what they said. She had heard worse before, in the training camps on Mars and on the long trips between human colonies. She knew this fight wasn't about pride. It was about showing the galaxy what a human could do. Humanity was new to the Galactic Union, and many called them Deathworlders, a species from a planet so harsh that even the air could kill weaker beings. To others, the word was an insult. To Lena, it was just home. The referee, a tall Drellian with 6 arms, stepped forward. "Contestants," he announced, "begin when the gong sounds. Rules are simple. No energy weapons, no lethal force. First to fall loses." His voice carried across the arena, and every creature raised their weapons. Lena raised nothing. She just squared her shoulders. The gong sounded. It was deep, like the heart of a mountain. The first fighter moved, a Tringar, all covered in dark green armor plates. He leapt forward with insect speed, his claws ready to strike. The crowd cheered. He swung a heavy blow across Lena's face. The sound was loud. The hit should have sent her flying. But Lena didn't move. Her head turned slightly, and then she looked straight back at him. Her eyes were calm, almost pitying. The Tringar froze, his claws shaking. A strange shiver went through his body. His mandibles twitched, and suddenly his legs folded under him. He collapsed face first onto the floor, out cold. For a moment, no one moved. Then the arena exploded with noise. The med drones flew in, scanning the fallen Tringar. The scanners beeped fast, confused. No wounds, no burns, no damage, just a sudden neural overload. His body had shut itself down. The announcer tried to speak, but his voice trembled. Lena touched her cheek where the blow had landed. There was no mark. She frowned slightly. "Is he okay?" she asked, her translator repeating her words in a dozen alien tongues. The question made the arena go quiet again. The crowd didn't understand. Was this girl mocking them? Or was she serious? Then the Bruthak stepped forward. His scales were black and gold, his chest broad as a door. "My turn," he growled. He didn't wait for a signal. He charged, his heavy tail smashing the ground behind him. Lena stood her ground, feet steady. The Bruthak swung his arm like a hammer. She ducked low, the wind from his strike brushing her hair. He turned again, ready to bring down his tail, but before the blow landed, his whole body went stiff. His eyes widened, and he fell flat on his back with a crash that shook the arena. Gasps spread like waves through the crowd. 2 champions had fallen, and the small human hadn't moved an inch. The med drones scanned again. No injuries, no visible attack. The energy readings showed only one strange thing: a tiny pulse of vibration around Lena. Too low for most species to feel, but powerful enough to disrupt muscle control. In the control tower above, Commander Threx watched the monitors. He was old, his skin gray and lined with cybernetic wires. He had seen thousands of fights, but nothing like this. "Replay the impact frame," he ordered. The screen zoomed in. It showed the Tringar's strike, the moment his claw hit the girl's face. For a single instant, the sensors spiked, then reversed as if the energy had bounced back. Threx rubbed his chin. "Deathworlder biology," he whispered. "Their bones compress on impact. Their blood pressure equalizes shock, and their nervous system responds by sending a counterwave. They don't fight with power. They fight with survival." He looked down at the human in the ring, still standing quietly as med drones carried away her opponents. "She didn't attack them," he said softly. "They defeated themselves." Lena glanced up toward the tower. She could feel someone watching, but she didn't care. She had been trained for endurance, not for fame. Humans had survived storms, radiation, hunger, and war. A few punches didn't scare her. What did scare her was how the crowd had stopped laughing. Now they were silent, watching her not with amusement but with fear. Another fighter stepped forward, then hesitated. He looked at the fallen champions, then back at her. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Forfeit," he said in a trembling voice. Others followed. One by one, they dropped out. The announcer looked confused, unsure how to handle a match where no one wanted to continue. Finally, the referee raised his arms. The human Lena Voss is declared winner. The crowd didn't cheer this time. They just stared. Some whispered. Some backed away from the edge of the arena seats. They had never seen anyone win by standing still. Lena bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. Then she turned to leave. The exit doors opened with a hiss. Behind her, the whispers grew louder. "Deathworlder. Unshaken monster." Words twisted by fear and wonder filled the air. But Lena didn't listen. She just wanted to get back to her ship. Inside the hallways, guards led her through a maze of corridors. She could feel their unease. None of them dared to walk too close. When they reached her waiting chamber, one of them finally spoke. "You could have killed them," he said quietly. "Why didn't you?" Lena looked at him. "Because that's not what humans do," she answered simply. "We don't start fights. We finish them." Then she sat down on the edge of the bench, staring at her hands. She didn't feel like a winner. She felt different. Something about the way the aliens had fallen disturbed her. It wasn't just strength. It was something deeper, something she didn't fully understand. High above, in the observation tower, Commander Threx met with council officials. The screen behind him replayed the slow-motion footage again and again. "We need to study her," one official said. "She could be dangerous." Another shook his head. "Or she could be our key to understanding Deathworld resilience." Threx stayed silent. He knew what they were all thinking. Humanity had entered the galactic stage less than a decade ago, and most of the Union saw them as primitive creatures. Too emotional, too reckless. But after today, no one would ever see them that way again. Down in the waiting room, Lena closed her eyes. She could still hear the crowd's confused noise, still feel the strange energy that had moved through her when the blows landed. She didn't know if it came from her or from something deeper, something that connected all humans born under dangerous suns. Maybe survival itself had become their weapon. When the guard returned to escort her to her quarters, Lena followed quietly. Outside, the crowd was still roaring, but she didn't look back. She didn't fight for fame or for medals. She fought to show that humans could stand their ground, even when the galaxy thought they were weak. And tonight, she had done exactly that. As she stepped into the elevator that rose toward the upper decks, the massive arena below her shimmered with thousands of lights. Somewhere in the stands, a child pointed at her image on the screen and whispered in awe. She didn't even flinch. Lena smiled faintly. "That's what it means to be human," she whispered to herself. She had no idea that this small victory would echo far beyond Cavor Prime. In the shadows of the council chambers, powerful beings had already begun to discuss her name. To them, she wasn't a competitor. She was a weapon. And soon the real test of a Deathworlder's endurance would begin. After her victory in the arena, Lena was escorted through a maze of white corridors, her footsteps echoing softly against the metal floors. Scientists, commanders, and diplomats watched from behind glass panels, whispering to one another. They had never seen a human perform like this before, and the memory of the fallen champion still lingered in their minds. The Tringar and Bruthak had not been hurt physically, yet their bodies had betrayed them. Lena understood that the galaxy measured power differently than humans did. For them, the strength of a species was often judged by how fast they could strike or how much armor they could carry, but Lena's kind measured it in endurance, in the ability to stand when everything tried to knock them down. In a small observation chamber, she was left alone for a moment. She touched the gray walls lightly, feeling the vibrations from the arena far below. Even after the fight, she could sense the residual energy from the strikes, as if the blows had left tiny echoes in the air itself. She closed her eyes, remembering the sound of the gong, the rush of air from the Bruthak's tail, and the moment the Tringar had collapsed at her feet. Humans had survived deserts, storms, and frozen wastelands. They had endured hunger and disease on planets that tried to kill them. This was just another test, another place where the galaxy expected them to fail. But Lena had not. The door hissed open, and 2 guards entered. They were not like the soldiers in the arena. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical. One of them spoke in a calm voice, careful not to startle her. "You are to report to the council chambers. The leaders of the Galactic Union wish to meet you." Lena nodded. She had expected it. After today, there was no doubt she had captured the attention of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The chamber they led her to was enormous. High ceilings reflected light off polished metal floors, and a giant circular table sat in the center. Around it were beings from dozens of species, their faces unreadable, their eyes sharp. At the head of the table sat the Emperor of the Xylan, a creature both beautiful and terrifying. His scales shimmered like black glass, and his eyes glowed faintly with gold light. Lena felt a ripple of awareness go through the room. He was used to control and fear, and he noticed everything. The Emperor's voice rang out, low and commanding. "Human," he said, "you stood against champions who could crush worlds, and yet you did not fall. Tell me, why did you not retreat? Why did you not defend yourself with strength?" Lena kept her voice steady. "Because humans endure. We survive when others would fall. Strength is not always in the strike. Sometimes it is in standing still." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And sometimes it is in refusing to surrender." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, and he leaned forward slightly. He lifted his arm and struck, a blow that should have flattened her. The chamber shook as the strike landed. Dust rose from the floors and several guards stumbled. But Lena stood her ground. She felt the force travel through her body, yet she did not falter. The energy bounced back subtly, almost imperceptibly, enough to disturb the Emperor's balance. His arm wavered, and for the first time he looked uncertain. A murmur ran through the room. The guards had never seen this happen. Their Emperor, the ruler of 12 systems, had been shaken by a human girl. Some of them stepped back instinctively. Lena looked at him without fear. "I did not strike," she said softly. "You struck, and yet you stumbled. Humans are not quick to fight, but we do not bend easily." The Emperor's golden eyes flickered. His mandibles clicked, a sound that indicated both thought and surprise. "You are no ordinary creature," he admitted. "You carry the strength of your world, of your people. You have survived what none of us would endure. That is why you are here." He gestured to the other council members. "Observe her. Learn what we may from this human." For hours Lena answered questions, showing nothing but calm. She described the harsh environments of Earth, the deserts and mountains where humans learned to survive. She spoke of the storms, the radiation, the cold, and the hunger, and how humans adapted. Every word seemed to impress the council. They had studied her race as a curiosity, thinking of humans as fragile. Now they saw something different, resilience and willpower so strong it could challenge even the most powerful in the galaxy. Outside the chamber, news of her endurance spread across the systems. Broadcasts replayed the arena footage billions of times. Some beings were inspired, others feared what humanity might become. Lena did not seek glory, but she understood that humans were no longer just a species, they were a symbol. A small, unarmed human girl had stood against mighty aliens and shown that strength was not only physical. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Back in her quarters, Lena rested briefly, knowing that this was only the beginning. The Emperor had invited her to stay under his observation, to see what further tests she could withstand. Humans were rarely tested like this, and she felt the weight of every expectation. Yet she was not afraid. She knew that endurance was built from experience, and her life had prepared her for this moment more than any other being in the galaxy. The next day, Lena walked into the Emperor's private training grounds. It was a massive room filled with simulators, alien weapons, and obstacles designed to challenge the strongest species. The Emperor watched from a platform above. "Today," he said, "we will see if you can stand when the universe itself strikes." Lena nodded. She did not need to ask what that meant. She had already felt the universe's blows, figuratively and literally. This was just a new test. As the exercises began, Lena faced challenges far beyond what she had imagined. Gravity fields heavier than any human world tried to push her to her knees. Mechanical warriors lunged and swung with precision that would have overwhelmed most species. Every strike that landed against her seemed designed to break her, to test the limits of her endurance. And yet she did not fall. She moved just enough to avoid being destroyed, but she never panicked. She breathed steadily, kept her mind clear, and let her body respond naturally. Every step she took, every small adjustment was calculated and instinctive. The Emperor watched silently, astonished. "No species has endured like this," he murmured. His voice carried to the council members, who all nodded in agreement. They had underestimated humans. Their technology and their strength could be impressive, but the human spirit, the unyielding will to endure, was unmatched. By the end of the day, Lena had completed every test. She was bruised and tired, but she was still standing. The Emperor approached her, his golden eyes softening. "You have proven yourself beyond measure," he said. "Not by striking or defeating others, but by simply remaining unbroken. That is power the galaxy cannot ignore." Lena bowed slightly, a gesture of respect learned from humans but understood universally. "I did what I could," she said. "I am not a warrior in the way you see warriors. I survive, and that is my strength." The council agreed to recognize humanity as more than a curiosity. Humans would no longer be underestimated. The galaxy would remember the small Deathworlder girl who had stood still while Titans fell. Lena returned to her ship later that evening, looking out at the stars. The victories in the arena and the council chambers had changed everything, not just for her, but for all humans. The galaxy would watch them differently now. Humans were no longer fragile. They were proof that survival, endurance, and willpower could outmatch raw strength. Lena leaned back in her chair, feeling the gentle hum of her ship. She had not sought recognition, nor had she desired glory. She simply wanted to live, to endure, to prove that her species could withstand what the galaxy threw at them. And yet she understood that her endurance had become something greater. It was a message to all worlds. Strength was not always in striking first or fighting hardest. Sometimes strength was in standing tall when all else tried to knock you down. The stars outside her window shone like silent witnesses. Somewhere in the far reaches of the galaxy, beings who had once mocked humans now whispered their names with respect. Lena smiled faintly. "This is only the beginning," she said to herself. "We will endure, no matter what comes next." And with that thought, she closed her eyes, ready for whatever challenges awaited beyond the next horizon.